Every night at 3:13, I hear my dead brother calling me. The voice that broke the silence. There's a silence that comes with grief, one that wraps around your life like fog. Thick, suffocating, constant. You try to live again, you pretend to laugh, eat, sleep. But beneath it, the loss lingers like static in your ears. That was my reality after my brother, Caleb, died. A senseless accident on a rain-slick road, a funeral full of unanswered questions, and then silence. At least, until the night I heard his voice again. It was exactly 3:13 a.m. The first time I heard it, I thought it was a dream. I'd been living alone in our family house since Caleb's funeral. Mom couldn't bear to stay in the place filled with his memories, and Dad had left years ago. So it was just me. Me and the empty hallways that still smelled like his cologne. Me and the rooms where his laughter used to bounce off the walls. Me and the constant reminder that my little brother, my best friend, was gone. That night, I woke up drenched in sweat, heart pounding against my ribs like it wanted out. I looked at the alarm clock next to my bed. The red digits blinked back, 3:13. That's when I heard it. "Danny!" A whisper. Faint. Drawn out. But unmistakable. My body locked. I stared into the dark, trying to convince myself it was part of a dream. The kind your brain invents when it's grieving. But then I heard it again, clearer this time. "Danny, help me." I bolted upright. The voice had come from the hallway. The exact spot where Caleb used to stand at night when he'd sneak into my room as a kid, scared of thunderstorms. "Caleb," I whispered, feeling foolish even as the word left my lips. No answer. Just the deep silence of the house and the ticking of the wall clock. I stayed frozen until morning. The next day, I chalked it up to a half-dream. A sleep-deprived hallucination. That night, I made sure all the lights were off, the doors locked. I even took a sleeping pill just in case. But at 3:13 a.m., I awoke again. And so did his voice. This time it was louder. More urgent. Closer. "Danny, where are you?" I grabbed the baseball bat under my bed. Not because I thought it would protect me from a ghost, but because I needed something to feel real, something solid to hold on to. I crept out of bed, stepping softly into the hallway. The air was colder there. Still and heavy. I followed the sound down the hall to Caleb's old room. The door was slightly ajar. That was strange. I never went in there. I kept it closed, sealed like a mausoleum. Now it stood open. Swallowing my fear, I pushed the door open with the tip of the bat. The room was exactly as we'd left it after the funeral. Posters on the wall. A few trophies on the shelf. His favorite hoodie still draped over the chair. But there, in the middle of the bed, was an indentation. As if someone had just been sitting there. I stepped back, heart racing. The hairs on my arms stood on end. I backed out slowly, shut the door and locked it. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. By the third night, I was terrified to go to bed. I sat up in the living room with all the lights on, watching TV volume low, pretending everything was fine. At 3:13 a.m., the TV flickered. Then it cut to static. The power didn't go out, just the TV. That's when I heard the voice again, this time behind me. "Danny, please. I'm cold." I spun around. No one. My throat dried up. My hands trembled as I grabbed the remote and turned the TV off. Every instinct in my body screamed run, but I couldn't. Something about the voice. It wasn't just ghostly. It was sad. Plus, Caleb hadn't just died. He was trapped. That's when I made a decision that still haunts me. I decided to talk back. "Caleb," I said aloud, my voice cracking. "Is it really you?" Long pause. Then barely audible. "Yes." I wanted to believe it. God, I wanted to believe it. But deep down something felt off. Caleb's voice had always been full of energy, mischief, warmth. This one was empty. Fragile. As if it had been stretched thin. "What do you want?" I asked. "Help me, please. It's so dark." My mouth went dry. "Where are you?" The voice paused again. Then, "In the woods." Froze. The woods. The same woods where they found Caleb's crashed car. His body had been thrown clear of the wreck, but he was already gone by the time help arrived. The coroner said he died instantly. No suffering. But now I wasn't so sure. "Danny, come find me." That was the last thing I heard before the clock ticked over to 3:14. Then nothing. The silence returned, and with it, the cold. I couldn't shake the feeling. I barely made it through the day. I kept glancing at the clock, my stomach turning every time it got closer to midnight. I thought about calling someone, a priest, a paranormal investigator, even a therapist. But I couldn't explain it. Not without sounding insane. So instead I drove to the crash site. It was about a mile into the woods behind our house. A narrow road, flanked by twisted trees. The guardrail was still dented from where Caleb's car had skidded off the road. Bits of shattered glass sparkled in the dirt like tiny diamonds. I stepped into the woods, trying to match the place to the fragments of his voice. The air was thick, and the trees loomed like silent watchers. There was a heaviness in my chest. Not just fear, grief. A deep, hollow ache that reminded me of the moment I first got the call. He was only 17. I walked deeper until I found the spot. The place where the cops said they found him. I knelt down, brushing aside leaves, hoping for a sign, for answers. That's when I saw it. A small, rusted object buried under the leaves. I dug it out. It was Caleb's keychain, the one I gave him. A tiny silver skateboard with his initials scratched into the back. I should have felt relief. Closure, maybe. Instead, I felt watched. And then I heard it. Not behind me. Not in the distance. But inside my ear. "Danny, you found me." I dropped the keychain and ran. I didn't look back. That night I didn't sleep. Couldn't. At exactly 3:13, the house filled with whispers. Soft at first, then louder. Layers of Caleb's voice overlapping each other. "Danny. Uni. Danny, help me. I'm here, don't leave me." I covered my ears, shut my eyes, and curled into a ball, whispering, "This isn't real, this isn't real." But it was real. I could feel it. He was trying to come back. Or worse, he never left. The static in the walls. The whispers didn't stop. Every night at 3:13 they returned. Caleb's voice, but stretched, cracked, as if echoing through something wrong. Sometimes it sounded like him. Other times, it didn't. The keychain sat on my nightstand now. I didn't remember picking it up. I could have sworn I dropped it in the woods when I ran. But there it was the next morning, dry, polished, as if someone had carefully placed it beside me. That was the first day I started to question if I was losing my mind. I kept hearing strange clicks in the walls, soft thudding like something was crawling through them. When I pressed my ear to the drywall, I could hear faint static, like a detuned radio station trying to form words. The whispers never came during the day, just the feeling. Like someone watching. Like breath against the back of my neck. I started avoiding sleep altogether. Coffee and energy drinks littered the kitchen counter. But the body always gives in. That night my exhaustion won. I passed out on the couch, TV still humming. At 3:13 I snapped awake. Except I wasn't in the living room anymore. I was in Caleb's room. Sitting on his bed. Everything was dark. Shadows bled along the corners of the ceiling. The air smelled like dirt and something rotting just out of reach. I tried to stand but couldn't move. My arms were numb. My legs too heavy. The window across from me creaked open slowly, though there was no wind. And then Caleb stepped through it. Or at least something that wore his shape. He was drenched. Mud caked his arms and face. His eyes were white, completely blank. His lips didn't move, but his voice rang inside my skull. "You said you'd help me, Danny." I opened my mouth to scream, but my jaw wouldn't move. I could only sit there, helpless, watching as he took a step forward. Then another. Water pooled at his feet, soaking into the carpet like a spreading bruise. "I can't come back alone," the voice said. "You have to open the door." The room around me began to shimmer, distort. The posters on his wall melted. the corners folding in like they were burning from invisible fire. I saw glimpses, flashes, of a forest at night, a twisted tree, a black pit under the roots, a door buried underground. Then I woke up, back on the couch, covered in sweat, my clothes damp as if I'd been outside. The keychain was in my hand. The next morning I tried calling my mom. I needed to hear her voice, to remind myself of something real. But her number went straight to voicemail. Called again. And again. Then I noticed it. The time on my phone said 3:13 a.m. Except the sun was up. It was clearly morning. I reset the phone, powered it off and on again. The time corrected itself. 10:27 a.m. But a chill stayed with me the rest of the day. I avoided going into Caleb's room, but every time I walked by, the doorknob rattled. Once, I swear I saw light under the door, flickering like candlelight. But when I opened it, nothing. Just air. An empty bed. That night I locked the bedroom door. I pushed a dresser in front of it too, just in case. At 3:12, I sat in bed gripping the keychain like a talisman. My ears strained, waiting for the moment the whispers would start. And then silence. Nothing. No voice. No static. Just the tick of the clock. 3:14. 3:15. I started crying. Out of relief mostly. It was over. Maybe it had just been a dream, a grief spiral I finally escaped. Then I noticed the closet door. It was open. I never leave it open. Inside everything was dark. Too dark. Not just absence of light, wrong. I stared, breath caught in my throat. Then something shifted inside it. Not loudly. Just the faintest sound. Fabric dragging. Footstep. "Danny," Caleb whispered from the dark. "You closed the wrong door." The bedroom door behind me rattled violently. The dresser slammed forward, knocked to the floor. I scrambled back as the closet began to widen. Not open, widen. Stretching unnaturally across the wall, edges warping like rubber. Hands gripped the doorframe from inside. Bill. Oh. Too many fingers. Ran. Out the hall. Down the stairs. Out the front door barefoot. Not even realizing I was screaming until I reached the middle of the road. The night air burned in my lungs. When I looked back, every window in the house was lit with a cold blue glow. And standing in Caleb's bedroom window was him. Watching. Not moving. Just watching. I didn't go back inside until daylight. When I finally returned, the lights were off. Everything was still. Like the night had erased itself. The only sign anything had happened was the overturned dresser and the wet footprints leading from the closet to my bed. The next day, I dug out an old photo album. I needed to remind myself who Caleb was. Not whatever this thing was pretending to be. I flipped through pages, each one heavier than the last. Birthdays. Christmas. Caleb holding our dog, Benny. Caleb in his soccer uniform. Then I found a photo I didn't remember ever taking. It was of the woods. A tree, dead and black, split down the middle. Beneath it, something like a door made of stone, half buried in the earth. On the back of the photo, in faded handwriting that wasn't mine, were the words, 3:13 is when the gate opens. I stared at the photo, the dread in my stomach twisting tighter. I don't remember Caleb ever going into those woods. But there it was. Proof. Some connection. That night, I left the house before 3 o'clock. I drove aimlessly, parking in a gas station lot 20 miles out. I sat under flickering fluorescent lights, windows rolled down, trying to breathe normally. 3:13, my car radio turned on by itself. White noise. Then his voice. "You can't run, Danny." The rearview mirror cracked down the middle with a sharp snap. I floored it, driving until the sky turned pale blue. The thing that scared me most wasn't the voice anymore. It was the fact that every time I heard it, it sounded less like a ghost, and more like something learning to be human. Trying to remember how to be Caleb. Trying to come back. And I was starting to believe it might succeed. The whispering tree. I returned to the woods. Not because I wanted to. 'Cause I had no choice. The photo from the album kept appearing no matter how many times I tried to throw it away. Once I even burned it in the sink. Watched the flames curl the edges, turn it black. But the next morning it was taped to my bathroom mirror, right where my reflection should be. So I gave in, packed a flashlight, grabbed the keychain, and drove back to the place Caleb vanished 2 years ago. The trail was overgrown, almost like the forest itself didn't want to be found. Trees leaned in too close, their branches scraping my arms and face like claws. But something pulled me forward, a whisper just beyond hearing, brushing my thoughts. It sounded like Caleb humming the melody he used to sing before bed. Twinkle, twinkle, little star. The deeper I went, the colder it got. The summer heat didn't reach here. Moss grew thick over rocks and bark. Fog clung low to the forest floor. Everything was silent, except for the crunch of dead leaves under my boots. And then I saw it. The tree from the photo. Blackened, split, charred like it had been struck by lightning centuries ago. Its bark was riddled with strange carvings, spirals, jagged eyes, rows of teeth. At its base was a stone slab, a door just like in the picture. I couldn't tell if it was a grave or an entrance. My flashlight flickered, then died completely. The air smelled like copper. I knelt down and ran my hand along the stone. It was cold, too cold. Even the surrounding dirt felt warm by comparison. And then I saw it, something etched into the stone, partially hidden beneath moss. Open when the call returns. Suddenly, the keychain in my pocket pulsed with heat. Pulled it out. The metal glowed faintly, as if reacting to the stone. And before I could stop myself, I pressed it into a circular indentation just above the engraving. Fit perfectly. The ground trembled. A low groan filled the woods, like the trees themselves were moaning. The slab cracked down the middle with a hiss of escaping air, revealing darkness below. Steps descended into the earth. I didn't want to go down there, but something behind me shifted. I turned just in time to glimpse a shape darting between the trees. Pale human shape, but wrong. Too long. Too fast. Butching. So I descended into the dark. The air below was wet, heavy. The stairs were carved into the earth, rough and uneven. My flashlight still wouldn't work, but the walls glowed faintly with a greenish sheen. Fungus or something older, alive and watching. After what felt like forever, I reached the bottom. A cavern stretched out before me. In the center was a pool of water, black and still. Around it were objects. A teddy bear, a rusted bicycle, a blood-stained baseball cap. Things that should have been buried. I recognized one. Caleb's backpack. It was untouched. Zipper intact. His name stitched in the corner in Mom's handwriting. I reached out with trembling fingers, and the moment I touched it, something screamed. Not out loud. In my head. A sound like tearing flesh and glass shattering underwater. The water in the pool rippled violently. Shapes began to rise from beneath. Arms, faces. Children. Dozens of them. All pale. All dead. And all looking straight at me. Their mouths moved together. One voice echoing from them all. One must return. I staggered back. The flashlight flickered in my hand, then burst to life, illuminating the walls. Covered in drawings. Hundreds of them, scratched in with fingernails or stone. Scenes of children dragged into the woods, screaming faces, open mouths with black worms crawling out. And always the same tree. Always that door. The pool began to bubble. Something massive moved below the surface. A shape that dwarfed the others. I didn't wait to see more. Ran. Up the stairs, out into the forest, lungs burning, feet slipping on roots and mud. I didn't stop until I reached the car. My clothes were soaked. My hands shaking so hard I could barely fit the key into the ignition. When I got home, the house was silent. Until 3:13. Then the whisper came again. Louder than ever. Danny. I'm close now. The voice was in the walls. The floor. My mind. And then something knocked from inside the bathroom mirror. 3 soft knocks. I opened the door slowly. Nothing. But on the mirror, written in condensation, were 5 words. One must return in place. I turned around. Caleb stood in the hallway. or what was left of him. His body was bloated, waterlogged, skin gray and split. His smile was too wide. He didn't speak. Just raised his hand slowly and pointed to the keychain in my palm. "Your turn," he finally whispered. Blacked out. When I woke up, the sun was shining. Birds chirping. The keychain was gone. So was Caleb. But something wasn't right. I looked around the house. Felt colder. Dimmer. The clocks were frozen at 3:13. Every reflection I passed, window, TV screen, glass frame, showed me standing still for a fraction too long after I walked away. Check my phone. Hundreds of missed calls. All from Caleb's number. And a single voicemail. His voice. But not a whisper. Scream. "Don't trust the reflections." The message repeated itself over and over until the phone melted in my hand. Soft like wax. I didn't know what was real anymore. But I knew this. I had opened something. And it wanted me to finish what I started. I avoided mirrors after that night. Every surface that could reflect even a hint of me was covered. Bathroom mirror, TV screen, framed photos, even the glass oven door. It wasn't paranoia. I knew what I'd seen. Every time I looked into a reflection, something in it lagged behind. Or smiled when I wasn't. And sometimes it wasn't me looking back at all. It was Caleb. Bloated. Rotting. But smiling. The voicemail from him had corrupted my phone. The device refused to turn on again, even after a factory reset. The battery oozed some black substance that smelled like mold and copper. I threw it in the trash, but the next morning it was in my bed. Right next to my pillow. Playing that same voicemail on loop. Don't trust the reflections. I tried to sleep in the living room where there were no mirrors. That night at 3:13 I woke up gasping. My chest felt tight like something heavy was sitting on me. When I looked up there was something there. It was me. Or rather, something that wore my face, but wrong. Its eyes were hollow, skin cracked like old paint, and its mouth stretched wider than any human mouth should. It grinned and leaned down close to my face. Its breath smelled like pond water and rot. "Let him come back," it hissed. "You can take his place." Then it was gone. I didn't sleep again for 2 days. The tree from the woods haunted my dreams, twisting, whispering, showing me things I shouldn't know. I saw kids I'd never met being pulled beneath its roots. Their screams. Their nails scraping at the dirt. Their faces, still pleading as the soil swallowed them. And always that voice. One must return in place. Caleb had come back. That meant something had left. And if I didn't do what it wanted, it would take me anyway. On the third night, I found muddy footprints leading from the front door to my bedroom. Children's footprints. Bare feet. Tiny toes. They stopped at my bed. There was a new photo on the pillow. I hadn't taken it. I wasn't even in it. It was Caleb alive. Sitting at the foot of my bed. Behind him in the mirror, I stood with a knife raised. Only I hadn't been there. Had I? I couldn't trust time anymore. Couldn't trust my memory. Sometimes hours vanished without explanation. Sometimes I found myself standing in rooms I didn't remember walking into. Once I woke up outside the tree. No memory of driving there. Just the cold earth in my mouth and the keychain clenched in my fist, leaving bruises. That's when I called Lily. She was Caleb's best friend. They'd grown up together. She was there the day he vanished, though she never talked about it. I hadn't seen her since the funeral. When I explained everything, she didn't hang up. Didn't laugh. She said, "Meet me. Now." We met in an old diner off the highway, one of those places where the coffee tastes like burnt rubber and the booths are held together with duct tape. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. Her eyes were sunken. Her fingers twitched constantly. "I saw him too," she said before I even sat down. 3 days ago. In my bathtub. I didn't speak. He whispered my name. Just once. Then he vanished. But after that I started seeing things. Shadows. Faces. My reflection smiled at me. Even when I didn't. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small notebook. It was filled with sketches. some of the carvings from the tree, others of that underground chamber. She'd drawn the children's faces in disturbing detail. "You remember when Caleb disappeared?" she asked. "We were walking through the woods. He stopped by that tree. Said it was calling him." I nodded slowly. "He said it knew his name. That it told him it could bring someone back if someone was taken in return." She swallowed. Her hands trembled. I thought he was just playing around. But then he stepped toward the base. I turned to grab his hand, and he was gone. Tears filled her eyes. No sound. No scream. Just gone. We sat in silence for a long time. Then she leaned forward. "You said you heard him at 3:13. He nodded. "That's the hour of reversal," she said. "The mirror of time. The minute when doors open between what is and what was. That's when they come through." "Who's they?" asked. She looked around the diner, lowered her voice. "The ones who live beneath. Beneath memory. Beneath reflection. They wear the faces of the ones we miss." I shivered. "Why Caleb?" "Because he offered himself," she said. "He thought he could bring back Dad. He always blamed himself for the car accident. That hit me like a brick. I hadn't heard that name in years. Their dad had died in a crash when they were kids. Caleb had always been in the passenger seat. He never talked about it." Lily reached into her coat and pulled out something wrapped in cloth. She unwrapped it slowly and handed it to me. It was the keychain. The same one I thought I'd lost. "Where did you get this?" I asked. "I found it in my mailbox this morning. With a note." She slid the paper across the table. It was yellowed. Written in handwriting that wasn't Caleb's. It said, "He chose wrong. One must still return." We left the diner together. As we got into my car, the radio flickered on. Dead air. Then Caleb's voice. Not distorted. Just tired. "Danny, please. I don't want to be here anymore." Then it cut to static. We drove straight back to the woods. The tree was waiting. This time the stone door was already open. The steps glowed faintly, beckoning. I looked at Lily. She nodded once. And we went down together. Beneath the roots. The air beneath the tree was damp and heavy, like stepping into the lungs of something ancient and alive. Each step down the stone staircase echoed in ways that made no sense, sometimes far too loud, sometimes not at all. The deeper we went, the more the air changed. It smelled of earth, decay, and something sweet, like spoiled honey. Lily walked ahead, flashlight shaking in her grip. I followed close, my palm pressed tight around the keychain, using its sharp edge to anchor myself to reality. Every few seconds, I thought I saw movement in the dark, shadows rippling along the walls, faces just beyond the edges of light. None of them spoke, until we reached the bottom. The chamber was just like I remembered, but larger. The tree's roots stretched through the stone ceiling like veins, pulsing faintly with light. The dirt floor was scattered with children's shoes. Tiny ones, worn and filthy. And in the center was a mirror, 7 feet tall, ornate, its frame carved from twisted wood and bone, humming with a low vibration that resonated in my teeth. Lily whispered, "It wasn't here before." She took a step toward it, and I yanked her back. "No." "But the mirror. It didn't reflect us. It reflected the room, but it was empty. No us, no shoes, no roots. Just the chamber, still and silent. Then something moved within it. Caleb. He stood in the center, wearing the same clothes he had on the day he vanished. His eyes were hollow, like they'd forgotten how to hold life, but he looked right at me and mouthed one word. "Help." Lily stepped forward again. "If we break the mirror." "No," I said quickly. "What if it's holding him in place?" She hesitated, then nodded. Another figure entered the reflection. It was me. But not me. He was older, paler, drenched in water. His smile was slow and wrong. His head twitching in little jerks, like a puppet strung too tight. My doppelganger reached out and pressed his hand to the inside of the mirror. I felt ice across my chest where his palm landed. Lily whispered, "They want to trade." A pulse went through the room. The roots above us quivered, and the mirror flickered like water catching light. Behind Caleb, more figures appeared, children. All of them looked at me. One girl pointed. Another mouthed, "Your turn." Then came the voice. Low, ancient, like stone grinding against bone. "One for one." As was promised. One for one. I fell to my knees. I didn't promise anything. But the voice answered anyway. "Your brother did. You are bound by blood. His debt is yours." Lily dropped beside me. "We need to make this right. If they take you, they'll let him go." I looked at her, horrified. "That's not a choice." She grabbed my shoulders. "We don't know what happens if we don't. They've already let him back in pieces. If they drag him all the way out." I didn't want to hear the end of that sentence. The mirror flashed, and suddenly the chamber was full. Dozens of figures lined the walls. Children, adults, and things in between. Their skin was cracked, their mouths stitched shut or too wide, their eyes black voids that seemed to drip shadow. One of them stepped forward. It looked like Caleb, but its smile gave it away. The mouth opened impossibly wide, and from its throat came a horrible sound, a chorus of every voice I'd ever heard in my life screaming all at once. I screamed too. Lily pulled me up and backed away from the mirror. The thing followed us, but its feet never moved. It slid across the ground like it was on a conveyor belt of darkness. "Take the key," Lily said, pressing the chain into my hand. "Throw it into the mirror. What if it brings them through instead of sending him back?" We don't have time to argue. The roots overhead began to crack, sap bleeding down like thick black syrup. The thing lunged through the keychain. The moment it touched the mirror, the glass shattered, not outward but inward like it was being swallowed. The light went out. All at once, the chamber plunged into complete darkness. No breath, no sound, nothing. A whisper in my ear. "I didn't want it to be you, Danny." And I woke up in my bed. Sunlight streamed through the curtains. Birds chirped outside. For a moment it felt like a normal morning. Until I saw my hands, covered in mud. I stumbled to the bathroom. The mirror showed someone else. Still me. But not me. His eyes blinked a half-second after mine. His smile didn't match mine. Backed away. My phone buzzed. A new voicemail. I hadn't even realized the phone was working again. Press play. It was Lily. But her voice was distorted, distant. "They took the wrong one." Blick. I ran outside. The tree was gone. Just an open pit in the earth. Smoke curling up from the roots below. Something was climbing out. And it wore my face. The one wearing my face. Moved just like me. Same walk. Same posture. Same nervous tick of flexing the fingers when anxious. It even had the tiny scar over the right eyebrow from the time I'd tripped in the garage when I was 9. But its eyes, they weren't mine. They were too still. Like mirrors that absorbed light instead of reflecting it. I stood frozen at the edge of the hole where the tree had once been, staring down at this other version of myself. It climbed steadily, silently, eyes fixed on mine as it emerged from the pit. There was no struggle, no urgency, just purpose, confidence. And then it smiled. "Danny," it said in my voice. "You're not supposed to be out here." I backed away instinctively. "What are you?" It tilted its head. "I'm what came back." Then, calmly, it stepped onto the grass, brushing dirt from its shirt. My shirt. Ran. I didn't think. Didn't look back. I just bolted through the yard, heart in my throat, lungs burning. I didn't stop until I reached the main road. And even then I kept moving, scanning faces, windows, reflections. Everything felt wrong. Kilter. The trees swayed like they were watching. The shadows stretched too far. My phone buzzed again. Another voicemail. This one wasn't Lily. It was Caleb. "Danny, don't let it in. Please. Don't trust its face. It's not me. It's not you. It wants to finish what I started." The message cut out in a burst of static. Finish what he started. What had Caleb done? I stumbled into the Old Town Library, one of the few places with free Wi-Fi and no cameras. I ducked into a corner and opened my laptop. If this thing was from wherever Caleb had disappeared to, maybe there was something in those old urban legends that could tell me what it was. Search after search turned up vague folklore about mirrored men, the borrowed, and the hollowed. All accounts were similar. People seeing perfect versions of themselves returned after strange disappearances. At first they blended in. But slowly, they unraveled everything in the person's life. Replaced them. Not with violence, with doubt, with silence, with isolation. Until one day the real person just vanished. I slammed the laptop shut. Someone sat down beside me. I didn't hear them approach. Didn't see a reflection in the dark screen. But I knew who it was before I looked. Me. The thing. You always run, he said casually. You ran when Caleb disappeared. You ran from the dreams. From the mirror. From the truth. I stood to leave, but he caught my wrist. His grip was cold. Final. You can't outrun your own face. I yanked away and ran. Again. But this time I didn't go home. I went to Lily's. Lily didn't answer the door. Her mother did. And she looked terrified. I told her to stop going back to those woods, she whispered. She never listened. And now she's not the same. I stepped inside. The house felt colder than it should. Too still. I found Lily sitting in her bedroom. Ill. Barely blinking. Lily. She looked up slowly. Smiled faintly. You shouldn't be here. I know. But I need your help. That thing, it followed me back. It looks like me. Her head tilted. They all look like someone. What do you mean they? She closed her eyes. There's more than one. My stomach dropped. Lily reached under her bed and pulled out a sketchbook. She handed it to me without a word. Inside were pages of drawings. All of me. Hundreds. Some smiling. Some screaming. Some with eyes blacked out or mouths stitched shut. One was sketched upside down, with hands for feet and no shadow beneath it. These are from my dreams, she whispered. They come every night now. One stands at the foot of my bed. One hides behind my mirror. And one talks to me like it's you. I turned the page. It was a drawing of me dead, buried beneath the roots of a tree. It says you already died, she said softly. It says I'm just pretending you're still here. I stood up quickly. Lily, you have to leave. Come with me now. We'll go to someone. Anyone. There has to be a way to stop this. She looked up at me again. But her expression had changed. Something darker. You don't get it, she said, her voice distant. I made the deal too. The air grew heavier. The room dimmed. I missed Caleb too. I just wanted him back. But I asked for the wrong thing. I backed toward the door. You're not Lily. She smiled. I'm what came back. I ran again. But this time I didn't feel alone. I could hear the footsteps behind me. But not just one pair. Several. In perfect sync. When I looked into windows or puddles, my reflection didn't always match. Sometimes it lagged behind. Sometimes it smiled when I didn't. And sometimes it wasn't there at all. That night I locked every door, every window, covered the mirrors, buried my phone in the backyard, sat with a knife clutched in my lap and all the lights on. At 3:13 a.m. the lights flickered, then went out. I held my breath. A step. Down the hall. Low. Measured. Coming closer. Then a whisper. Let me back in. I didn't move. Another voice, from the opposite side of the room. You don't belong here anymore. Turned. Nothing. I stood. Ran to the basement. It was the only place without windows. The only place I could hide. As I pulled the door shut behind me, I saw movement in the kitchen. 3 silhouettes. All of them shaped like me. Down in the dark I sat shaking. Listening. They didn't knock. Didn't speak. But I heard them breathing. And it sounded just like mine. The breathing in the walls. The breathing wouldn't stop. Soft, rhythmic, and unmistakably human. It came from behind the basement walls, weaving in and out of the silence like it had always been there, just waiting for me to be quiet long enough to hear it. I sat in complete darkness, the knife still clutched in my hand, my back pressed against the old furnace. Dust choked the air. The light from my phone had died hours ago, and I didn't dare charge it, not when they could trace power, sound, anything. But the breathing, it wasn't just in the walls anymore. It was above me, below me, inside me. I bit down on my knuckle to keep from screaming. Something brushed my ankle, light, almost like a thread being pulled across my skin. I didn't move, didn't even breathe. Then I heard the voice. His voice. Danny. My brother's voice, whispering my name with gentle pleading. Please. It's not what you think. I didn't mean to leave you. I swallowed hard. I saw you, I whispered into the dark. In the woods. You were wrong. Twisted. I wasn't myself. I wasn't only myself. They gave me something. Took something too. There was a dragging noise against the basement floorboards. I felt a tremble beneath my hands. My fingers grazed something cold, metallic. It was the trapdoor to the old crawlspace. Caleb and I used to hide down there when we were kids, daring each other to last the longest in the dark. I hadn't thought about it in years. Not until now. Danny, Caleb said again, closer now. They're pretending to be you because you're still holding on to me. Let go, and they'll stop. How do I know it's you? Said. There was a silence, then a soft chuckle. Remember when I broke your telescope and told Mom it was the wind? You cried for 2 hours. You couldn't lie to save your life. My chest tightened. That memory wasn't in any videos. Not in any diary. Nowhere it could have been stolen from. Come into the crawlspace, he said. I can't come out unless you believe I'm still real. I stared at the trapdoor. Long time passed. Then I opened it. The smell hit me first. Wet earth, rot, mildew. I lowered myself into the space, crawling with one hand, the knife still in the other. My body barely fit. The darkness pressed against my skin like it was alive. Caleb, I whispered. No answer. Just the sound of something shuffling ahead. Like a faint, bluish glow around a corner. I followed, heart pounding, every nerve screaming not to. The space opened up into a crude chamber I never knew existed. Tree roots split through the walls, twitching faintly like veins. Symbols were scrawled across every surface in something too dark to be paint. And in the center was him. Caleb. But not as I remembered. His face was paler, skin thinner, stretched too tightly. His hair had grown in ragged, uneven patches. His eyes were wet with tears. I tried to come back the right way, he said. But something came with me. What is this place? He looked around. It's where they live. Between. I stepped closer. Who? The borrowed. They live on echoes. Reflections. They can't create, only mimic. They needed a door. I was the first one to open it. Why did you? I wanted to say goodbye. A pulse trembled through the roots. The chamber dimmed. A shape stirred behind Caleb. Tall, formless, covered in faces. My face. My mother's. Lily's. Time's almost up, he said. If you don't close the door, they'll wear you next. How do I close it? He looked at my hand. The knife. But. He stepped closer, placing my hand on his chest. I'm not supposed to be here, Danny. Let me go. Tears burned my eyes. I can't. You must. He smiled faintly. You were always stronger than me. I drove the blade into his chest. The chamber screamed. Light burst from the walls, and the faces shrieked, warping and twisting before tearing apart like smoke in wind. Caleb's body collapsed into dust, scattering into the earth. I scrambled out, crawling back through the tunnel, back into the basement. The air was thinner now, the shadows clearer. But as I reached the stairs, something was waiting me again, smiling, clapping slowly. Well done, it said. I raised the knife. But it didn't move. It just looked at me with mock pride. You closed one door. But how many others did he open? Lunged. The knife sank in deep. But instead of bleeding, the thing split, cracked open down the middle like glass. Inside was nothing. Just darkness. Endless and hollow. Collapsed at my feet, evaporating. Then silence. Real silence. For the first time in weeks. I stumbled upstairs and out the door. The sun was rising. Birds chirp. The wind was just wind. I stood in my front yard shaking. It was over. Or so I thought. Until I saw my reflection in the window. Smiled before I did. My reflection doesn't follow me anymore. The sun had barely risen, casting a pale yellow over the house when I saw it. My reflection in the front window. Smiling before I did. I didn't move. My hands dropped to my sides. I stared at the window like it was a screen and someone else was watching me from the other side. My reflection didn't match my breathing, didn't blink when I blinked. And when I took a shaky step back, it stayed rooted in place, grinning. It wasn't me anymore. I turned from the window, heart hammering, and ran back into the house. Everything looked normal. The creaky stairs, the photos on the wall, the dust motes swirling in the sunlight. But it felt like someone had rearranged my world slightly. Like all the familiar things had been copied, poorly. My phone buzzed on the counter. I'd left it unplugged, dead. But now it was glowing again. A message notification lit up the cracked screen. Unknown number. You can't run from your own face. I dropped it. Then the sound came again, low and warbling. A hum, almost musical, coming from upstairs. I hesitated. The hallway seemed longer than it should have been. Each footstep echoed too loudly, like the house was hollow, stretching. When I reached my room, the door was wide open. The mirror above my dresser had cracked, split right down the center. But it wasn't the glass that made my skin crawl. It was what was staring at me through it. My reflection, but older. Smiling too widely, too knowingly. Wave. Then it stepped forward, but I didn't. Its hand pressed against the inside of the mirror, leaving a smear that looked too red to be a smudge. I reached toward it, something primal inside me screaming to stop, and as my fingers neared the glass, it mouthed one word. Switch. I yanked my hand back. The mirror rippled. Not shattered. Not broke. Rippled. Like water. I stumbled back, bumping into my bookshelf. Books clattered to the floor. The mirror stilled. My reflection was gone. I didn't sleep that night. At 3:13 a.m., the whispering started again. Only this time it wasn't Caleb's voice. It was mine, calling from inside the walls. The attic. The floorboards. Begging. Laughing. Mocking. I sat curled on the couch, gripping the knife, surrounded by salt lines and candles like I had any idea what I was doing. Nothing helped. The voice taunted. Let me back in, Danny. It's so cold in here. Covered my ears. I'll make it stop, it said. The breathing. The reflections. The splitting. Just say yes. I screamed. My voice cracked like the mirror had. I slammed my hands against my ears, hard enough to hurt, trying to drown it out. Then silence. Real silence. I opened my eyes. And he was there. The reflection again, but standing in the hallway now, physically there. Wearing my clothes. Smiling with teeth slightly too long. You almost let me in, it said. It lunged. The knife slashed across its chest. It didn't flinch. Instead it laughed. Raw, raspy, dry. That's not how this ends, it hissed. It raised a hand. My body locked up like something unseen had grabbed my spine. You killed your brother for closure, it whispered, circling me. But closure's just a story you tell yourself so you can sleep. You open the door. You let me see. See what? Croaked. Leaned close. How hollow you already were. Then it vanished. I collapsed to the floor, gasping. 4 hours I didn't move. Just laid there waiting for daylight. But the house changed again. The floorboards creaked in places they hadn't before. Light switches flickered when I walked past. Every reflective surface distorted subtly, warping faces, making my eyes too big, my mouth too wide. I covered the mirrors. I taped black cloth over the windows. But still, at 3:13 a.m., the knock came. 3 soft knocks. At the bedroom mirror. Followed by my voice. "Danny. I'm still waiting. You're already halfway gone." That night, I dreamt I was walking down a hallway of mirrors. Each one showed me something different. Me with no face. Me crying blood. Me reaching through the glass, screaming silently. At the end of the hallway stood Caleb. His eyes were stitched shut, mouth sewn tight, but he kept shaking his head violently, pointing behind me. "Turn." My reflection stood there again. But this time, it was weeping. "I didn't know," it whispered. "He tricked me too." Then the hallway shattered. Fell through glass, through silence, through myself. When I woke up, my bed was soaked in sweat. And the mirror in my room had a message written across it. "Which one of us is dreaming?" I grabbed my things. Whatever this thing was, whoever, it wasn't going to stop. It wasn't just pretending anymore. It was becoming. I left the house by sunrise. Drove for hours until I hit the edge of town and kept going. I found a cheap motel far enough from anywhere familiar. The mirror in the bathroom was already gone. Shattered. I covered the TV screen with a towel. Avoided any shiny surface. But that night, the digital clock blinked erratically. At exactly 3:13 it stopped. I held my breath. No whisper. No knock. Just silence. Until I looked at my phone screen, accidentally catching my reflection in the black glass. I wasn't blinking. But my reflection was. It mouthed a word again. "Closer." I threw the phone across the room. Something was happening. Something worse than death. A slow bleed between realities. I scribbled Caleb's journal notes on motel napkins, trying to decode the ancient sigils he had drawn years ago. One phrase kept repeating in his scrawl. "To lock the door, you must forget the shape of your own soul." What did that mean? How do you forget yourself? I tried everything, chanting nonsense until it made sense, burning pages, praying to anything that might hear. But the reflection kept returning. The voice grew louder. Every night, 3:13 a.m., like a siren call dragging me toward some impossible ending. And one morning I woke up, with a scar on my chest, a cut I hadn't made, shaped like a spiral. And on the mirror the message had changed again. "Only 2 more nights, Danny. Then it's your turn to live behind the glass." 1 more night. I tried not to sleep that night. I fought it like a drowning man fights for air, guzzling cheap gas station coffee, blasting old horror podcasts, pacing the tiny motel room in bare feet until the carpet burned my soles. But exhaustion makes fools of us all. Sometime after 2:45 I blinked. And the room was gone. I stood in a forest, barefoot, shirtless, cold biting through my skin like teeth. The trees leaned inward, tall and skeletal, branches scraping together with the sound of chattering bones. Fog slithered along the ground. My reflection stood at the tree lean, smiling with Caleb's mouth. "You're almost there," it said. I turned to run, but every step landed me deeper in the fog, like I was running in place. "Where do you think you're going, Danny?" it asked, voice splitting, half my own, half something buried and old. "There's only one place left to go." A mirror hung between 2 trees ahead, suspended by rusted chains. My reflection in it wasn't moving anymore. It was watching me. I approached slowly. My reflection bled from the eyes. I reached out. The glass was warm, pulsing, like a heartbeat. Then it cracked. I jerked back. The sound echoed through the woods like thunder. From behind the trees, dozens of reflections emerged. Versions of me, mutilated, broken, burned, smiling. They stepped in sync, surrounding me. One stepped forward, eyes missing, mouth sewn shut. Held something in its hand. Photograph. Caleb and I, as kids, building a blanket fort. I hadn't seen that picture in years. I took it from the thing's hand. Flipped it over. In Caleb's handwriting. "You promised you wouldn't let it in." The reflections vanished. The woods dissolved. And I woke up screaming in the motel bed. The clock blinking 3:14. I was late. That had never happened before. Check my phone. The screen stayed black. My reflection stared back. Still smiling. I threw the phone at the wall. It didn't break. The motel room had gone dead silent. No hum from the air conditioner. No sounds from outside. Just silence so thick it felt like pressure. Then the knock came. But not from the mirror. From under the bed. I didn't move. Couldn't. A voice, muffled, said, "Danny, it's not your fault. I didn't mean to make you stay." It was Caleb. But not the whispering version. Not the cruel voice I'd heard for weeks. This was his voice. Real. Familiar. "I thought I could help you forget," it said. "But you remembered me. That's what broke the seal." I dropped to my knees and peered under the bed. There was nothing there. Just darkness. Endless. But I crawled in anyway. The motel room vanished behind me. The darkness opened like a tunnel. And on the other side, I saw my old house. Not the decaying shell it had become, but as it was when we were kids. Warm lights. Laughter in the kitchen. Caleb at the table, coloring monsters. And me at the door, too afraid to come in. He looked up. "Mile. I didn't mean to scare you," he said. "But I had to make you see. You weren't you anymore." I stepped inside. Everything felt wrong. Too still. Like a memory preserved in amber. "What are you?" I asked. He looked at the crayons in his hand, then at me. "A shadow. An echo. A part of you that never stopped screaming." He stood. "I've been calling you back. Every night. So you'd remember what it felt like before. It found you." "It?" I whispered. He nodded. "The reflection. The watcher. The one that waits behind the glass." I felt the floor shift beneath me. The lights flickered. "I can hold it off one more night," Caleb said, reaching out and pressing his palm to mine. A jolt surged through me, heat, light, something real. "But after that, you'll have to choose." "Choose what?" He looked toward the hallway where the mirror used to hang. "To stay. Or to trap it forever. But that means giving up everything." "I don't understand." "You will," he said. Then the house burned away around me. I snapped back to the motel room, gasping, covered in sweat. The time on the clock blinked again. 3:13. The final night was beginning. The motel mirror cracked without warning. A hand reached through my hand, but wrong. Its fingers bent backward. The skin was gray and crawling. Its wrist was stitched shut with black thread. The voice returned. "You can't run. Tomorrow you're mine." I grabbed my bag and ran outside. The sky was wrong. Too many stars all spinning. The moon looked too close. Like it could fall and crush the world. I drove. 4 hours. No destination. Just movement. By sunrise, I found myself parked outside our childhood home again. The real one. Boarded up. Forgotten. I don't know how I got there. But I knew I had to go inside. The door creaked open like it had been waiting. Inside, everything was covered in dust. Furniture draped in sheets like corpses. The mirror in the hallway gleamed, spotless. And in it, Caleb. Not his corpse. Not the whispering voice. Just Caleb. He smiled, tired. "You came back." I reached out. This time the mirror wasn't solid. My hand passed through. So did the rest of me. And suddenly, I was in the mirror. The hallway behind me gone. Reversed. Caleb stood beside me. "The last night starts now," he whispered. "If you stay, it can't use your face anymore. But you'll never leave this place. And if I go," he looked away, "it will follow. Into every screen. Every reflection. Through generations." I swallowed hard. "I'm tired," I said. He nodded. So was I. I sat down in the reflection. Caleb leaned against the wall beside me. Outside the mirror, the clock struck 3:13. The creature arrived. And found only its own face staring back. Screaming. "Stay with me." The reflection trembled. It stood on the other side of the glass, blinking back at me with hollow eyes. My eyes. But there was something fractured about it now. Its movements weren't fluid anymore. They lagged, jittered like a corrupted video file trying to play itself clean. It tilted its head. Cracks split its forehead. From them, something black and tar-like oozed, dripping down the mirror's interior like blood in reverse. I stood in the mirror world, a place without sound or scent, just the hum of an eternal void stretching in all directions. Time didn't move here. My heart didn't beat. And Caleb was no longer beside me. He'd vanished again like mist before dawn. The thing outside reached out, its hands pressing to the surface of the mirror. And this time the glass bulged. It wasn't a reflection anymore. It was trying to come through. I stepped back. "No," I whispered, though no sound carried in this place. But it heard me, because its lips peeled apart and it said in my voice, "You made your choice too late." The mirror buckled inward like a balloon sucking in air. The walls behind the reflection twisted, bloomed with rot, pulsing veins crawling across the wallpaper. The entire world outside the mirror was unraveling. And still I couldn't look away. My own face grinning, mocking. "I showed you mercy," it said. "I gave you memories. Gave you him. You owe me your face." "No," I said again, louder now. And something within me shifted. This place, this mirror, it obeyed my will. Not its. I pressed both hands to the glass from the inside. "You're not real." It laughed. "Neither are you. Not anymore." I screamed, not in fear but in fury. For Caleb. For the nights I lost. For every 3:13 where I woke up choking on my own breath, hoping it would be the last. The mirror shattered outward. Glass fell like ice rain across both worlds. And I was pulled forward, sucked through like a bullet from a gun. I hit the floor in the real house. Hard. The pain was immediate. Real. Beautiful. Breathe. The mirror was gone. Only a warped frame remained, black scorch marks circling it like a portal burned shut. And standing in the hallway watching me was Caleb. But this time he wasn't a dream or a twisted memory. He was 7 years old again, wearing the dinosaur pajamas he died in. He looked at me with wet eyes. "You didn't leave me." "I never wanted to." He came closer. "It's still in you, you know. Hiding behind your eyes." "I know." "Then you can't stop it. Not forever." "No," I said, rising to my feet, legs shaking. "But I can bury it. Seal it. Here." He nodded solemnly. "It'll be lonely." I knelt beside him. "Not if you stay." He smiled. And then he faded, peaceful this time. His figure blew away like ash caught in windless air. I walked through the house. Every room was coated in silence, and yet I could feel the eyes. Its eyes, watching from every picture frame, every polished surface, every forgotten glass trinket. So I destroyed them, one by one, until only one mirror remained. The small, handheld one from our mom's vanity. The one Caleb had taken into the closet that night, all those years ago. I held it up. Nothing stared back. No face. No shadow. Not even mine. Smiled. Then I smashed it under my boot. The house groaned. A low, pained moan reverberated through the walls. Paint peeled in seconds. Wood warped and blackened. The very bones of the place screamed. Ran. I didn't look back. The sun was rising over the horizon, and for the first time in weeks, I wasn't afraid. I drove. No destination. Just the road and the light and the silence in my head. No whispers. No 3:13. Just peace. 3 days passed before I heard the knock again. Not at a mirror. My motel door. Froze. Second knock. Low. Deliberate. Then a voice, faint, muffled. "Danny." "It's me. It's okay now. You can let me in, Caleb." But it wasn't. I stepped away from the door. "No more tricks," I whispered. The voice spoke again. "It's lonely out here, Danny. You said I could stay." I didn't respond. Not this time. Instead, I walked to the motel mirror. Cheap, spotted, the kind that barely shows your face, and covered it with a towel. Then I closed the blinds, unplugged the TV, covered every screen and reflective surface I could find. I sat in the corner of the room, waited. The voice never came again. But every night at 3:13 I still wake up, just to be sure, to check the dark, to make sure it hasn't found me again. And in the silence, I always whisper one thing. I remember you, Caleb, because memory is stronger than fear. And even if it comes back, whatever it truly was, it'll never be him. And I won't be afraid to fight it again, even if it takes everything I have. 'Cause I promised. And I keep my promises, especially to my brother. Even if he's gone, even if I'm next.